Hi, Sai and Sai here for Music Radar. We are checking out Moog's new Spectravox thing, which is, well, it's a spectral processor. But tell us more about what it's doing.
We'll get to what it actually is in a minute. Let's talk about a bit of context first.
Okay.
So there's a few things like worth mentioning about Spectravox, about where it fits into Moog's history as a whole. So it is obviously like, if you've seen anything like DFAM, which we have here, or kind of the Mother 32 or subharmonica and those kind of rackable semi-modular synths, it is quite obviously looking at another of those.
Yeah, it's a Moogfest build alumnus, isn't it?
Yeah, so Moogfest was, for anyone who doesn't remember, so Moogfest was something that back, the last one being in 2019, but back kind of last decade, Moog used to do these kind of semi-regular sort of festival slash synth expo slash
nice big party,
thing,
lots of things going on,
which used to happen like in and around their kind of base of operations in North Carolina.
Yep.
And at these Moogfest, they used to do something called the engineering workshop, which was basically like where you could pay to go and be guided through the process of building your own synthesizer. And so in these workshops over the years, Moog kind of used them to sort of introduce the world to what would end up being some forthcoming products.
Bit of a springboard for...
So yeah, I think the Mother 32, the DFAM...
Yeah, and the subharmonica.
All of these.
Yeah, all got real life sort of R&D'd.
Yeah, so they kind of, they all originated as these DIY projects that like, a limited amount of people could make at Moogfest. And then a few months later, all of them then appeared as sort of mass market, widely available, non-DIY, like kind of fully built products.
Apart from that one.
Yeah, so Spectravox, that was at what was, at the time being, for now anyway, the final Moogfest, which was back in 2019.
Yeah.
At the time, everyone who signed up for the engineering workshop got to make this thing called Spectravox, which was a kind of vocodery, filter banky thing. I remember at the time, obviously some first images of that appeared, images and videos appeared on the internet, and everyone was like, oh great, Spectravox, we'll look forward to seeing that when it comes out properly in a few months. 2019, obviously a lot has happened since 2019. In world terms, global pandemics, supply chain, things like that.
All that.
But more specifically for Moog, so Moog as a company, since then has been acquired by InMusic. InMusic being this kind of big hyper brand in music technology, who own things like Akai, M-Audio, Newmark, Stanton, quite a lot of other...
Yeah, Rain, there's a lot of DJ brands.
Yeah, a lot of DJ brands.
Yeah.
So they've kind of got all of these brands under one big umbrella.
Yeah.
And now Moog are one of those brands. As part of this, the kind of the quite fairly well-known Asheville headquarters of Moog has been... they've relocated, very much downsized their US operation.
Yeah, so production is all in Taiwan, is that right?
Well, so this is the first. So Moog always used to kind of proudly talk about making products in their factory in Asheville. I don't know to what extent they were all actually American made in terms of like, I think there was a certain amount of like components might be brought in from overseas or whatever, but effectively anyway, all Moog products were like at least assembled and calibrated within their factory. Now that's not the case now. So Spectravox is the first hardware product that has come out from Moog since that whole takeover and all these changes and things. It's also the first one, if I just tilt this up so we can see, there is a little thing on the back here pointing out the fact that it's made in Taiwan. Which is obviously not something that you'll find on DFAM or subharmonica and things like that.
No.
So before we get into what Spectravox is, it's probably worth addressing that as the kind of elephant in the room, is in like, how does it actually...
What's the difference?
How does it compare? I mean, unboxing it, there's a couple of small things we noticed. The most visible thing is these wood end cheeks here. You can see they're kind of a slightly different
They're not as nice.
Tone.
Let's be honest. That looks to me a bit like it's plywood from the edge there.
It doesn't. It doesn't
like
kind
a
of
whole wood.
Yeah, it doesn't look or feel too much lower quality.
No, it's not the end of the world.
But
by any
there is
stretch.
a noticeable difference there. It's worth saying Spectravox is a little bit lighter than DFAM, but to be fair, they are different instruments. There's different things going on inside, so you can't really read too much into that. The other most noticeable thing unboxing this is that, so when we got DFAM and the other ones in the range, you used to get these really nice big manuals with them. You can see this one's kind of bent because it's sort of well thumbed, but the reason it's kind of well used is because like these are really nice manuals that like walk you through sort of every step, every part of what's going on in an instrument, and then have these nice kind of patch sheets towards the back. Yeah. And actually, you know, it's not the instrument itself, it's a manual, but actually these were the things that I really liked about the kind of DFAM Mother 32 and things like that. Yeah. Because, you know, obviously I'm an editor of a print magazine. I'm the sort of person who likes the
printed word,
like real kind of physical media.
Yeah,
but
of course.
I've got skin in the game in that sense. But I liked being able to sit down and like kind of read those and go through them, particularly with these products, which are kind of fairly esoteric things. Aside that, I remember when DFAM came out, at least one of the Moog press releases referred to it as like really intuitive and really simple, which is none of these things are. You need a manual to go through them.
It doesn't matter that your sort of base level of synthesis knowledge is not going to really help you with some of these sort of like I say, esoteric controls and
I mean something like DFAM is a kind of strange almost drum machine thing that works on the basis of audio rate modulation and
you need a manual.
You need a manual. Yeah. Anyway, getting sidetracked. But so what you get in the box with Subharmonicon instead is one of these smaller kind of fold out quick start guides.
With the dreaded QR code.
A QR code, which does, to be fair, take you to a digital version of the same format of manual, which is nice. But obviously it is missed. You do also get, to be fair, Moog have found space for a nice kind of fold out poster, which I'm not going to unfold because I can't fold them up afterwards.
Much like maps.
Yep. And then these, which are really nice, which are these overlays, which effectively act as preset sheets, which you can go and kind of pop over here, which give you kind of initial patches for the various functions on Spectravox, as well as some kind of cool things to try. So that's kind of it in terms of the hardware itself, in a nutshell. As we say, there's differences, there's no massive obvious drop in quality, but it's worth saying within the space of the time we have to review something like this, obviously this was only released a few months ago, we've had our hands on it for like a few weeks, but realistically to judge something like that, it all comes down to the years and months and how well something holds up to kind of regular playing and regular gigging. It's very difficult to, without wanting to be a cop-out, it's very difficult to kind of judge something like that.
Oh, yeah.
But in terms of like initial impressions, there's no huge obvious drop in quality, which is good.
That is good.
So Spectravox, what actually is it?
Yeah, what is it?
It's described here, you can see, as a semi-modular analog spectral processor. What is that?
What is that?
Basically, it's part filter, it's part vocoder, it's part monosynth, kind of combines elements of all of these things.
Okay.
The main central feature here is this filter bank here. So filter bank, kind of obviously, is a bank of filters. There's 10 of them here, and what these filters do is essentially divide the signal up into 10 chunks. So you've got a low pass one down the bottom, high pass one up here, and then these are all band pass filters in the middle, which is basically just dividing up an audio signal into all those frequency ranges. Yeah. So to kind of get an idea of that, if I put this onto just drone mode, so it kind of creates a constant tone, you can see if I turn up different bands here, these are effectively level controls.
Yeah.
Adjusting the level of the tone across the frequency spectrum. So what do we actually do with that? So as I said, this kind of combines elements of filter and synth. So the synth part of this, you can see here that we've got a single oscillator switchable between pulse and saw wave modes. So if I turn up a few of these bands, you can hear I've got this in kind of the VCA on mode, drone mode. Effectively, the signal path here is basically like a really simple monosynth.
Yeah.
In terms of we've got an oscillator here with frequency, which can also be flipped between VCO and noise. Then you've got a basic envelope with just a decay control. So if I trigger that, decay control there. So oscillator envelope, and then in the middle, instead of having like you might on a normal monosynth, a simple kind of low pass filter, you've got this filter bank. So you've got these 10 different different bands of filter between an oscillator and an envelope, which creates this effectively a really simple monosynth design.
Yeah.
So the key differences here are that there's a couple of different ways we can use this. So as well as having it as a simple monosynth like that, we can plug something into this carrier input, which allows us to use it as a filter bank instead of a synth. So instead,
a sound source.
So essentially, we are then swapping an audio input in place of the VCO and then having that going through that filter bank.
Yeah.
We can also use it as a vocoder. So vocoders, most people I'm sure probably familiar at least to an extent with what a vocoder is. It's something that familiar to kind of the Daft Punky, Kraftwerky.
Yeah.
So the way a vocoder works basically is you have two signals called the carrier and the modulator, or in some senses, like in this, the program rather than modulator.
Yeah.
And what a vocoder essentially does is gives you a carrier, which is often something like a synthesizer or kind of a kind of melodic tone or whatever.
Yeah, a sound source of
a sound source, tone, and then uses the modulator to apply the characteristics, often of something like a human voice, to that. So effectively, you're applying the resonances of something like a human voice to something like a synthesizer.
Yes.
So the way vocoders work is they use filter banks like this. So if we put a human voice into the program input, that is then analysed using kind of 10 analysis filters across all of these bands, which translate their frequency band into an envelope, kind of like a synth envelope or whatever, which then controls the filter.
Right.
So basically what that's doing is replicating almost like the resonances of like your mouth and throat.
Yeah.
So these 10 bands are effectively working like kind of resonators to apply the shape like your kind of throat, mouth to a synth instead of the noise coming through your vocal cords.
Yeah.
That's basically kind of a very simplified version of how a vocoder works.
So what's the very Moog thing that you can do that's extra to this?
So as we said, the whole concept of vocoders and filter banks, blah, 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 10 filters, that's the central thing.
Yeah.
What makes Spectravox a bit different from a lot of either vocoders or filter banks is the fact that we can use this spectral shift control here to modulate essentially the cutoff of all of these filters at once. So let's put this on here and turn up some of these frequency bands and spectral shift. You can hear, particularly if we turn up the resonance. So this resonance here is the kind of shared resonance for all of these filters. And then spectral shift essentially kind of acts like almost like a shared cutoff for all of these filters. So we can shift the bands of those filters. And as you can hear, that affects what's going on just from this synth oscillator, but also we'll shift it when we're using it as a vocoder or if we're putting something through the filter bank as well. We also have this triangle wave LFO, which lets us modulate that that shifting either from the LFO here, or we can patch something into the patch bay, or as I was doing then, you can use that knob to do it manually.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's have a listen.
So let's check this out as a vocoder first.
Get the mic out.
Got a mic here.
Yeah. Plug it in.
dynamic mic. So I'm going to get you to
sing. No, I don't sing. I do not sing. So we'll go
That's the whole point of the vocoder, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right, so we're going to put it in vocoder mode.
Okay.
We've got it on envelope generator mode. So let's turn this up. I'll turn up the decay a bit and let's see.
2, check. Hello.
Yep.
Hello. 2, check. 1, 2. So we can. It sounds like a vocoder. That's
It sounds like a vocoder.
Sound. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like a vocoder. It's worth saying it's not the most It's
Check.
you,
1, 2.
You might, because you can obviously hear yourself talking here.
Yeah.
It's not the most, as vocoders go, it's not the most kind of intelligible of vocoders. So
Sure, there'll be a lot of tweaking to.
It's quite a possibly because of like it's all analog design, and also because of these spectral shifting things and stuff like that. It's not exactly the clearest sounding vocoder that we've ever encountered. As you can hear from you just talking there.
Check. 1, 2.
At the moment, we've literally just got a fixed frequency from the VCO.
So we need to.
Yeah, we need to patch something in. So it's worth saying that Spectravox doesn't have MIDI or a sequencer or obviously a keyboard, as you can see.
All analog.
If we want to make use of it, we're going to have to use something with a CV and gate output, like hence why we have the KeyStep Pro here.
Yeah.
So let's just patch this pitch output into here. And then if I patch the gate output up here.
There you go, yeah. Into there.
Yeah.
Now. 2, check. 1, 2, 1, 2. Yeah, I mean, I still can't make it sound good, but we know what's happening.
So obviously you've got, you're now...
Let's go lower. That's more like it.
You're now able to play that. If we start using the spectral shift stuff, we can apply some...
Oh yeah, get some modulation going on. Hello.
Start playing with the resonance.
I wish I could actually give you something that was a bit more musical than this. Well, I can't. So, but yeah, I get it. I get what's going on.
So that's in vocoder mode. If we flip it back to filter bank mode, so that then flip it back to filter bank mode, yeah, we're now effectively playing it like a monosynth because we've got the gate and trigger in here. So we can, yeah. Yeah, so we can use it kind of like a more straightforward monosynth, playing around with those spectral shift controls, and then basically using this filter bank to adjust the different frequencies. So that's very basic functionality. What I would say about Spectravox, so as we've kind of demoed some of that vocodery things, I think actually thinking of Spectravox as a vocoder is probably the least interesting way you can use it.
Yeah, yeah.
Kind of like a lot of these Moog semi-modular things, it absolutely comes to life when you start patching other things into it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think Spectravox is the one of all of these devices that makes the least sense as a purchase for a standalone thing.
Yes.
So as you can kind of see, what we've kind of demoed a bit there, you can, obviously we've very, very simplified versions of like the vocoder setup and using it as a monosynth, but that's not, none of that is particularly exciting or interesting.
Yeah, well, especially when I'm doing it as well.
So
when we combine other things such as...
Hence why we've got DFAM out here.
DFAM.
So let's take a little look at some of the other things that we can do with this. Cool, so now I've got the output of the DFAM plugged into this program input here.
Yep.
As I said before, the program input is mainly, that kind of feeds into the vocoder.
Yeah.
For a minute, let's just take a look at it in filter bank mode. So what I'm going to do is patch the output from that program input into the carrier input, so that's allowing us to process it through the filters.
Yep.
The reason I'm patching that rather than putting it straight in is because it means we can use this gain level here to control things.
Yeah.
So I've programmed like the really basic kind of kick and snare sort of patches on the DFAM here, just so we can see what's going on. If I start running that, at the moment I've got all of these filters turned down, so we've got nothing coming through, but we can start
building.
Basically, yeah, introducing different frequencies. And then start basically using this filter bank to process what we've got coming on out of here. As I said, we've got the LFO here, which we can use to shift this, use this spectral shifting. So let's just have it kind of slowly churning through like this, which sounds particularly interesting when you crank a bit of resonance. We could kind of have some faster LFO modulation. We can also dial in a bit of noise. So this control here, it lets us either have the kind of carrier or VCO input and balance it with the noise oscillator.
Okay, yeah.
So obviously we bring that in and we can kind of get some really interesting stuff going on. Do things like maybe patch this envelope into if we start changing a few things on here, you can start to get some kind of quite cool, interesting combinations of stuff going on. So let's try keeping this plugged in now and then having it running in vocoder mode. Okay. So if I unpatch that and we put it into vocoder mode, and then what we're going to do is patch the pitch back in here.
Okay.
So what we can now do is...
So that's, we don't need the gate because that is going to be...
I'm going to use the program input here.
Yeah.
You can see I've got that flick to program trigger envelope. That means that whenever the volume on here is crossing a certain threshold, it's triggering the envelope. Mm-hmm. So we could, as I say, we could either do that or we could use the trigger button to trigger it, or we could use the trigger input and that.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this for a moment. Let's unplug that LFO. That means so we can kind of start to play that kind of drum beat a little bit,
bit more melodically.
So some other cool things here. You've got this hiss buzz mode for bands 9 and 10 here. So if in buzz mode, that means that the carrier signal, so in this case the oscillator, is what we're is what we're hearing on those bands. But if we flip it to hiss, that introduces some white noise to these bands.
Oh, just the tone.
Yeah. So, in this mode, what we haven't talked about yet is probably my favourite thing that we can do with Spectravox. So you will see that under all of these bands, which we've been kind of introducing, dialing in and out using these knobs at the moment, you've got these 2 rows of patches. So the VCA input here is allows us to effectively control the level of each of these frequency bands through an input. But down the bottom here, we've got this envelope follower output for all of these. Okay. So what that does is, so as I said before about how vocoder works, this program input here is being broken down into analysis filters, 10 analysis filters, which generate an envelope which alter the kind of the response of all of these filters. Yeah. This gives us an output from each of those. So effectively it allows us to take the vocoder input for each of those bands and turn that into a control voltage, which is a kind of really interesting and quite fun thing that we can start doing. So we could, for example, let's keep playing around with this. So I could, for example, let's take the envelope follower up from this band and put it into the tempo on DFAM. So that's now creating an envelope that's kind of giving us this cool sort of swing effect going on there. Let's play around with some more stuff. Let's put just that LFO to and then maybe let's have the longer one, let's have the velocity output on here, triggering these upper frequencies. You can see, because we've kind of got that that envelope here triggering the tempo on there, as I'm sort of messing around with the decay length on here, it's kind of altering the tempo envelope, which kind of does some really interesting, cool things. What else could we do that could be quite fun? Let's see if I can get these close enough. Let's take the pitch control out of there. And then I'm going to so we kind of, we've got that this envelope here messing around with the tempo, giving us that kind of swing type thing. What else could we do that could be quite fun? Let's take the output from one of these VCOs and put it into the carrier here. So kind of just messing around there, but you get an idea of the fact that like you can start doing some more kind of cool and fun, interesting things. So yeah, so basically the kind of the takeaway here is Spectravox. It's a vocoder. It's probably best if you don't think of it like a vocoder, really. It's so let's talk about kind of pros and cons. A few pros and cons. So things we like about this. It plays really nicely with these other synths. It's a really great addition to other Moog semi-modulars, but also if you've got like semi-modular things. So for example, if you had like a Mini Brute 2 or whatever, or things like that, there's a lot of fun things that you could do with this.
It can expand on other instruments.
It expands on things really nicely. Yeah, I mean, of all of these Moog semi-modulars, it's the one that definitely makes the least sense as a standalone purchase.
The weakest of the bunch.
In that sense, the fact that there's no MIDI on it, I find a bit of a annoyance. This is the exact same thing I thought with like DFAM, to be honest. So it was like of those in the range there, you've got these two which don't have any MIDI inputs, and then you do have Mother 32 and Subharmonic that do have MIDI inputs. I almost feel like the lack of MIDI on these two is a bit of a like. It almost feels like someone at Moog is trying to make a point. It's like the kind of synth design version of being like, I only DJ on vinyl. I only like patch with CV. It's like no one would have died if you put a MIDI input on either of these things. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And also like, I don't think it's it's clearly not that an expensive edition because it's on the other ones, and it would have, as with DFAM. Like I love DFAM. I use the one I've got at home a lot, and I have loads of fun with it. But the fact that it's just such a pain to like sync to like Ableton Live or Bitwig or whatever, it's just a needless annoyance. Similar with this, it's like as a standalone device, if you could just obviously, like I said, you can patch the gate and the pitch in there, but like if you'd had MIDI or even better USB MIDI, would have been much more effective as a standalone device or a simple kind of desktop processor. Yeah, it's not. That's fine, but just it's something to bear in mind. Like if you're working out if and how you might use one of these, you need to factor in the fact that
it's limited.
Do you have the things worth connecting up to it? Yeah. If you do though, it's really fun, and like I'd say if you've already got the others in this rack here, it's a definitely one to add. It's got a lot. The more time you spend with Spectravox, I think the more interesting things you can find to do with it. And I think particularly these like envelope follower outputs are really interesting, and those will keep you entertained long after the kind of robot voicey thing. Yeah, sure. The novelty of that wears off. Yeah. So short answer is I really like it. It's a really nice addition. If you like those, if you've bought into the kind of esoteric Moog semi-modular things in the past, it's a great addition.
Want to join the family?
Made in Taiwan, but not.
So what?
It is what it is.
Yeah. So price-wise, then, how much are we looking?
I think retailing for £599, and I think around similar area like dollars and euros, which is basically the same as the other ones in the range.
Parity is.
You could bemoan the fact that, as I said, there's no big manual, and I would imagine cheaper wood on the end. But aside from that, it's kind of I think it's a fairly fair price.
It's still a Moog.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Well, do you agree with us? Do fight out amongst the comments. Let us know what you think of Spectravox. Are you going to get one, or have you already got one? Let us know. We're going to play out with some demos. Well, you are.
Yeah.
Is that right?
We're going to patch up some demos and have a little go.
All right. So
cool.
Stick with us. Have a listen. And until next time, we'll say goodbye for now and see you soon. Cheers.
Thanks.